Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Virgo, Sun, Moon and Ascendant for the month of November. I hope you're well. I've been somewhat battered by the retrograde in Mars and then additionally in Mercury, so I apologise in advance if I fall over my words. It's a side effect of the retrograde energy. I hope it hasn't been affecting you quite so much. So let's have a look. I have 3 cards for Virgo, please. 3 cards. First card is the 9 of Pentacles. I'd like to see that for you. Current energy for Virgo, please. Ooh, Death. I like that. Major Arcana, card of Scorpio. What's coming towards Virgo, please? We have the King of Swords. Interesting. At the bottom of the deck, we've got the Devil. It's a card of Capricorn in the Major Arcana, and you are there as the Hermit directly underneath that. And the 9 of Cups with the Ace of Swords and the 6 of Wands. Now, it's possible that some of you are dealing with a Capricorn, right? I'm just going to throw that into the mix there. But actually, I feel for most of you, what you are doing is ruminating on what it is that you are afraid of, right? The Devil represents all those things that, you know, are fears, right? And the ways in which they express themselves, which is regrettably usually a bit toxic, right? Dropping that. But there you are in a period of contemplation. And what is it that you're contemplating? Well, the truth about your own happiness, right? What it is that will make you happy. Now, when I say happiness, I don't mean like, you know, unicorns and rainbows and sweeties and that sort of thing, right? I'm talking about taking responsibility for your own happiness. Your own drive to exist in the world. For some Virgos this year, that drive has been missing, right? Frankly, there's been some very foggy energy surrounding you. And it's for you, like in so much as it's been difficult for you to see the way forwards. It's difficult for you to work out how it is that you're supposed to proceed in, you know, dealing with what it is that you've been dealing with all this year. And as I've said before, I've done enough readings for Virgos this year to know that you've been afflicted with bereavements and divorces and all these sorts of things, right? Now, it's a big thing to turn around and have a look at your own internal demon, but it seems like that's what you've been doing. And even if you haven't been heading it, you know, facing it head on, you have been at least having a little peek at it. And so when I say happiness, like I said, I mean like cucumber sandwiches in the park and stuff like that. I mean, what drives your light? Because no matter what happens to you, that light still exists. It's still there. It may dim at times, right? But it is still there. I'm drawn to a correlation between a number of cards here. We've got the Death card in your current energy, but notice how the crows are in identical positions there, right? There's something liberating implied by this card, right? And it's the truth, or it's new insight into something. It's seeing things a bit more clearly. We've got this laurel wreath here. Fuck's sake. It's just a normal car. Why is it making an awful noise? We've got this victory wreath here around the top of the sword. And it's reflected here too in the 6 of Wands. Whatever progress you are making, no matter how small it feels to you at the moment, you are on the right path. You are totally on the right path with it, right? And I'm really glad to see you here, right? If you get a sign showing up in their own reading, it's a really authentic presentation of their energy. So you are showing up for your own reading, which means that you're probably showing up for yourself a little bit more than you have been doing at times this year as well. And I like that too. Now, I'm going to get some, oh goodness, right. So let's get some clarifiers, and apparently we're going with the Night Sun Tarot, which is quite dense as a deck. But if it's what you want, then that's what we will go with. So I'll just put a bit more of that on there. I'll give him a little cleanse, because I can't remember the last time I used these. I can't remember the last time I cleared them. There we go. Right. Why is the Nine of Pentacles here? What's that? Five of Wands. Four of Cups. Right. We've got the Five of Wands. Sorry, I couldn't see what they were supposed to be there for a second. We've got the Five of Wands in reverse and the Four of Cups in reverse too. And I like that. I like that for both of them. I shall explain why in a little bit. Why is Death here? Please? Goodness. Ooh. Right, this is far too many. I'm not going to take all of these. But what we have is the Hanged Man. We have the Nine of Pentacles for the second time. We have the Nine of Cups for the second time, because it was the shadow card here. And we also have the Four of Wands. Now that's interesting. I think that might actually, do you know what, fuck it, we're going to take it anyway. They've all come out and they've presented, and they are all extremely relevant, so we'll go with that. This is just going to be perhaps a slightly longer reading than usual. And like the King of Swords, please. I need to know about the King of Swords. Ooh. We have the Lovers, card of Gemini. The King of Swords, please. There's the King of Swords here. And the Seven of Swords. Interesting. At the bottom of this deck we have the Justice card, card of Libra, followed by the Eight of Cups. The Justice card talks to me of higher notions of justice, right? So we're quite often talking karma and things like that, which is consequence, frankly. But whenever I see it, it often talks to me about lessons, and it's interesting. I'm looking at this Justice card here, and it's the wheel in the background looks like the tail feathers of a peacock, right? It's wisdom, is what that is, right? It's you having learned something. There is that is fascinating. So the Eight of Cups here, rather than having our standard depiction, which is a chap walking off under an eclipse, you know, there's cloak on and stuff like that, we have a woman with scales around her neck and four cups on either side, right? What are the chances of that coming out with the Justice card there? Right? Can you see it carried across? So we have a major arcana depiction of scales, balance, equilibrium, justice, fairness, that sort of thing, and a minor arcana depiction thereof also. But because of the meaning of the Eight of Cups, this becomes very interesting. In the Justice card, the scales are empty, right? There's nothing in the scales. Here, there's the weight of all the emotions, right? And they're balanced, but they look heavy. You know, they're suspended by heavy chains. They've got the cups in them. You know, the woman's got them across her shoulders. What burdens have you been carrying? Emotional burdens, Virgo. Because you may have found your balance with them, but you haven't quite let them go yet. And this card is about letting them go, right? It's putting down the cups and putting down the scales and turning on your heel and moving off, right? It feels to me like November's going to be a pretty important month for you in terms of what it is that you decide moving forwards, right? There's a there's a transformation in the offing for sure, but we've got a release of burdens as well. We've got the Ten of Wands underneath this Eight of Cups, right? Now, I'm not saying what you're going to do is pretend that whatever you've been struggling with this year hasn't happened, because obviously that is impossible. But there is a lightening of the load coming, right? And it feels like it's initiated from you. There may be a bit of universal, I don't want to say intervention, but maybe assistance in this. But ultimately, you are the one who is doing the work here to lighten your own load. Because you see the wisdom of it now. It's funny, instead of pillars, oh, I've got a shiver. Instead of pillars like you would usually see in the Justice card, it is known as a pillar card. The Hierophant is another one, the High Priestess. It has the signs for the Alpha and the Omega. There and there. And it brings with it a sense of completion. Not leaving behind things exactly, but choosing, making a choice to turn your eye forwards rather than back, if that makes sense. Right. So the first card you have is the Nine of Pentacles, and I'm really quite pleased to see this here for you, Virgo, because I feel like it was you. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was you that I asked whether you were looking after yourself, right? Because it seemed like the cards that were coming out suggested that you weren't, right? Neglecting your basic needs, eating, drinking, exercising, taking your meds if necessary, you know, talking to people, reaching out where you needed to, finding things to do with your time, right? Engaging in a physical way with the world. Right, and part of that is looking after yourself, and part of that is getting out and, you know, trying to do things. This I like, because this says to me that you took that seriously, right? It says to me that you are now looking at yourself and whether you've been looking after yourself, and you've made the decision to start doing it, right? This is your recent past. So something shifted already, right? And perhaps it was just your attention, because your attention was elsewhere. It was scattered. I live in a tiny, quiet little village, and everyone and his fucking dog has got a car or a motorbike or any woosa. Right, there's a butterfly on here, and there's a tree, and there are, you know, the butterfly is a symbol of transformation in and of itself. But the tree is something solid, right? You're an earth sign, and this is an earth emblem of longevity and care and deep roots, you know? And you are a deep sign. But I feel like there's something conscious come into play here for you now. Look how bright that sun is there, right? I'm not saying you're happy, but I am saying that you're taking care of yourself better, right? I love that dog as well. It looks a little bit like my Silas. It's clarified by what was this now? The Five of Wands in reverse, yes, and the Four of Cups in reverse. Now I like this. So the Five of Wands is about conflict. Right? Now, sometimes that conflict is with other people, and sometimes that conflict is within you. And I feel like, specifically for you, it was within, because there is only one character depicted on this card here. It was one of the reasons why it took me so long to work out it was the Five of Wands, right? There is one character, and these five wands are all sprouting out of what appears to be a very barren desert, right? The whole card is very dry looking, very arid. It's a card of Leo, this, right? But conflict. Internal conflict. But it's this way around, and I love this for you because I like to see all the 5, all the cards that are numbered 5 turned upside down, if at all possible, because for me it makes it stable where it was inherently unstable this way around, right? This is you being at war with yourself. This is you kind of looking to make peace with it, right? And there's a lot of peace here in this card, right? I don't think you're at peaceful yet, but something has shifted, something has changed. You're not at war with yourself anymore. And then we've got this 4 of Cups also in reverse. Now this way around, it can talk about abandonment and rejection and being taken for granted and all that kind of thing, right? But what I do remember about your reading last time was I inquired whether it was possible that you had not noticed what support was around you at this point, right? Because you were kind of focused on the issue at hand, whereas those around you who were trying to support you were trying to focus on you, and that was kind of the last thing that you wanted to think about at that point, right? That feels like it's shifted as well, because this is now inverted. Totally fucking forgot the word there, right? It's inverted too. So rather than feeling abandoned or neglected or taken for granted, or focusing on not taking the offers that were being proffered towards you, this sees you kind of turning the card upside down and acknowledging that those things are there and those things that exist. Now it could be that they're not giving you quite what you know all that you would need to heal yourself, but that's not really important at the moment, because ultimately the only person who's responsible for healing is you. But there is a strong network of people around you who are prepared to support you during that process, right? Hold space for you is how it feels, was what they were doing at one point, holding the space for you. But as these offers are coming in, now you're kind of seeing the intent behind it, you're seeing the love behind it. And this is helping. This is helping you stay on the straight and narrow, right? Certainly in terms of keeping your 3D body together. Now, where it gets really fucking interesting is in your current energy, because what we have here is transformation. Like the Death card is the ultimate card of transformation. It doesn't indicate death, or it can do sometimes, but it very, very rarely indicates a physical death. What it talks about is the death of the old and the rise of the new, and this feels like the energy that you're in at the moment. So where you have been laying the foundations for that here, taking care of your basic needs, right? The stuff that keeps you alive and the stuff that keeps your teeth clean and stuff like that, right? So as you've got into a pattern with that, now we've got truly something quite remarkable happening around you. And the clue is in the clarifiers, right? Because we've got this Pisces card here, the Hanged Man. Then we've got the 9 of Pentacles again. And we've got the 9 of Cups. And we've got the 4 of Wands. This is a transition, right? And I'm not quite sure what's prompted it. It may be the love of the people around you. It may be that you've just had enough of feeling shit. It could be that you have seen how far you went one way, how low you got. Was it you I said it to last time, that I thought that once you came out the other side of this, you would look back and you would see just how in the grip of what you've been dealing with you have been, right? How far you let yourself go. Yes, I'm sure I did, because I told you about when I did the same. I was certain it was Virgo. When I came out of the other side of it and looked back and was like, holy shit, I was at the bottom of a very, very black hole there for a time. I didn't really have anybody around me particularly to pull me out of there. I did largely do it by myself. But you do have people. And I don't think that they're pulling you out. I think that they've maybe gathered around the top of the hole and pointed at where the rope is. Rope ladders over here, right? We've got tea and cake for you when you get up here and you're ready to receive it, Anywho, we're in Scorpio season at the moment. I should throw that in as well, right? And Mercury retrograde is in Scorpio too. So it could be that you've been in a reflective state of mind anyway, right? But this feels more productive than where you've been before, because, you know, quite obviously it's facilitating change, it's facilitating a transformation. Now, this Hanged Man card, which is clarifying death, is, like I said, it's a card of Pisces, but it talks about suspending yourself upside down to see the world from a different perspective, right? It is kind of surrendering to the uncomfortable so that you may gain wisdom, enlightenment, new perspective, all of those kind of things. Because when you look at the world one way the whole time, all the time, and you stick in your comfort zone, you do not grow. Fucking fireworks now, like, I ask you, honestly. Haven't even burned down Parliament yet. For those of you who are American, we have this holiday, well, it's like holidays, like festivities every year. On the 5th of November, it's called Bonfire Night, or, you know, Guy Fawkes Night, and we celebrate the foiling of the Gunpowder Plot, which is when Guy Fawkes and some friends decided that they were going to try and blow up Parliament. And they were foiled at the last minute, I believe, because actually the barrels of gunpowder didn't go off the way that they were supposed to, and then they were discovered. And yes, Mr. Fawkes met a truly remarkably awful end. Actually, I remember reading about it at school when I was little. I remember thinking that that was pretty terrible. So on the 5th of November, we have big bonfires everywhere with effigies of Guy Fawkes and fireworks and stuff like that. Obviously, it's getting very close to that now. You don't move from your comfort zone if you don't look at things differently, and you are looking at things differently now in some way. Now, I don't think for a second what we're saying is here that you have decided that, you know, you've been doing things wrong all of this time. It feels like this is the right time for you to make a shift, because grieving is a process, and I've gone into this before. It's possible to grieve for more than just, you know, a physical loss. Everybody accepts that when you are bereaved, that there is a period of grieving that follows thereafter, but any kind of loss will result in feelings of grief. And, you know, divorce, even if your partner was an absolute bell end, right, you're still going to grieve for the fact that you're losing what you thought you had. You're losing, you know, what you'd imagined for yourself, but possibly for some of you, you feel like you lost years of your life on a person, right? I remember feeling that way myself when I got divorced. However, it wasn't wasted. I see that now, right? But this is not the point. There's a period of grief while you process the loss, and it doesn't matter what the loss is. Obviously, the more severe the loss, the more severe the respective grief that goes with it. But once you move through that process, and it is a fairly clearly prescribed process that everybody goes through when they're dealing with loss, you do come to a point where it's like you kind of open your eyes a little bit, and you're like, what do I do now? Where do I go from here? Like, I can't stay in this energy for the rest of my life. I can't do it. I mean, I just can't. And that's when we start looking at things slightly differently. That's when we start putting our, you know, the bits of us that are grieving become less front and centre, and we kind of pull them a little bit to the side. It's not like we eradicate them, it's not like we let go of it altogether, you know, but we kind of make it less the priority right in front of us. It's still there, it's still operative, but at a less important level than it was before. This feels like this is where you are here, right? And then we've got these two cards coming in together, and these are absolutely incredible, because we've got the Nine of Pentacles and we've got the Nine of Cups. Now the Nine of Pentacles, like I said, has already come up for you once, and I feel like this is indicating this shift from, you know, you having not paid attention to your basic needs to you now doing that, right? creating a foundation that allows you to then see beyond that. And then we've got the Nine of Cups. Right? And again, I'm not going to, in fact, the Nine of Cups was here, wasn't it? It was, right? Underneath the Hermit. When I'm talking about happiness, I'm talking about ice creams on the beach, you know, with your favourite people, although that can well be happiness. I'm talking about your light, Virgo. Where your light has been dim, I feel it's starting to grow again a little bit. And it's because the focus is shifting from the loss and the grief to something else now, right? And it's you, frankly, it's you, because that's what the nines talk to me about. They talk to me of the individual. And here you are now considering your light and considering your worth and your health and, you know, every aspect of your practical existence here, you know, incarnated here at this time. And then we've got the Four of Wands, and that is my card of foundations, right? It's a card of home for me. It often indicates a portal. I always say, if you had some really amazing news just land in your lap, right? Something truly exquisite that you were so excited about, like, who are the 5 people that you would call to share that news with, because they are home to you, right? Those people that you want to share that news with, they're home. Where would you want to go and celebrate? Like, all of these things factored in together to create something non-physical that is home. It's the people, it's the circumstances, it's all of that. What I love about the Night Sun Tarot is they've slapped a heart straight in the middle of that, right? Home is where the heart is. That's what that says to me. Yeah. All of this together says to me that there's a fundamental shift in the way that you have been doing things to how you are doing them now, right? And it's major arcana stuff. This is not kind of like little tiny movements like it was, oh my God, excuse me, like it was here, where we're talking about you brushing your teeth and drinking enough water and you know, eating properly and that sort of thing. This is something bigger than that. This is something much more profound. This is something that will change your life here. And remember that you can change your life with a thought, right? So it's not necessarily about, you know, getting a perfect job or stuff like that. Sometimes a particular thought will change the way that you see the world, and suddenly things open up for you, and it feels like things are opening up for you because you are seeing things differently now. And inherent within that is a transformational process that you may not even be necessarily totally aware is occurring, but it is, right? Because it's time for you to build a new version of home for you. Whether it is because you have lost people, or whether it is because you lost your job, or whether it is because you lost your home, whatever it is, the drive is now returning to construct something solid around you again, right? Your light is starting to grow again. I love this for you. So what you've got coming towards you in November is the King of Swords. Now, if this is a person, it would be an Aquarius. It doesn't have to be a man at all, because tarot doesn't care about gender. It's about the presentation of the energy, and that is either feminine or masculine, right? So masculine is much more active. The feminine is passive, right? So it could be a person coming towards you, but I kind of don't think it necessarily is. Might be, but it's probably not, right? This feels like it's clarity arriving for you, Virgo, where it's been missing, where you've been taking these little steps in the recent past to try and maybe bring some routine into your life and take care of yourself in the way that you need to, and that sort of thing, right? To where you are now, which is fundamentally shifting your energy and what you're looking for, allowing your light to shine a little bit, allowing hope to come back in for some of you, I feel, to then real clarity about what you want moving forwards. And I say this because what we've got here is the Lover's card, right? Now, that's the card of Gemini, And if you want a really flat interpretation of this, then it could be that there's an Aquarius coming towards you and they are fine. You know, it might be quite nice, and there's, you know, the potential of a romantic or sexual relationship here. I don't see any other cards around that would lead me to think that that was the interpretation. And quite honestly, Virgo, at this point in time, I think the last thing that you need is somebody arriving, you know, knight, male or female, arriving on a horse in, you know, shiny armour to come and rescue you. I think you'd just be like, oh, go away. Like, really? Now? I don't think so. And I don't feel like that is what this is talking about at all. I feel like this is really, really speaking to your clarity about how you move forward. Because the Lover's card is also a card that speaks about choices, right? Specifically, the act of stepping up and making a choice that changes your life. We're not talking about whether you want Indian or Chinese for dinner. This is about knowing that you have the power to change your life and do whatever it is that you want to do. And that all of that power is vested in you. You just simply need to step up and make those decisions. Now, I don't think that you've been in the right frame of mind for a very long time to be able to do that, but I do see it coming towards you now. Right? The King of Swords talks about clear thinking, you know, logic, reason, right? Clear, incisive thoughts about stuff. Right? And it because it's Aquarius, it can quite often be talking specifically about the future. Because Aquarius always looking at the horizon with things. And it feels like you are prepared now to take your future into your own hands. Right? It doesn't feel like you want to be kind of subject to the fates quite so much as you have been. You know, it feels like you want to decide what happens next. Now, if 2020 has taught us anything, it's that human life is fleeting, for one, but also that quite often our priorities are a bit fucked, right? Like modern society leads us to prize those things that are not important and lose sight of those things that are important. Yeah, there's a tower as I'm talking about 2020. And so what we're seeing is a rejigging of priorities. Now, you specifically as a sign are the ones that have dealt with major loss. Like, I haven't seen that as much with any other sign as I've seen it with you. This is part of your wheel turning, right? But I think you're starting to get really clear about what you want moving forwards, what you want from your life, you know, however long it lasts from this point on. What do you want to fill it with? I think I know what you want to fill it with. You want to fill it with feeling good, with having, you know, amazing people around you who care for you, who you in turn care for. And I think that you are getting ready to start putting that newfound sense of priorities, or that new drive, that light, to work, right? To make your future work for you. The Hermit. Holy shit. Right. Now, some of you were dealing with a Sagittarius last year and the beginning of this year. The Saggy connection, Sagittarius and Virgo were kind of mirroring each other in readings for a good like 6 months when I first started the channel, and like right into the beginning of this year. And I know I've heard from a lot of you, you know, that you were a Virgo and they were a Sagittarius and you got divorced, whatever, right? For some of you, there are still some very strong feelings, very strong anxieties to do with this Sagittarius, right? We've got the Knight of Wands here and we've got the Nine of Swords there. Things are difficult, but at the same time, it does feel like there is progress happening here, because these swords are being plunged into the ground, right? Now, if you want to look at it like that, as an earth sign, you are the ground, right? Just symbolically speaking. But enough time has elapsed now that there's grass starting to grow in between these swords, and there is a flower that's come up right in the center of them, and it's kind of headed towards the sun. Like, things may still hurt here for you, but you're kind of learning to live with it. You're learning to get around it, and in time, as you heal, you'll be able to pull those swords one by one out of the ground. Just fucking throw them away, right? The key is to be gentle with yourself at the moment, right? You don't need to be kicking yourself about things, and for some of you, you don't need to be, oh, did that not come up in your last reading? You don't need to be wishing like that they would get some, you know, huge karmic slap for how you feel like they have wronged you, right? The hurt is there, but you will prevail, right? You will get over it. God, that sounds so fucking trite. I'm sorry, I don't mean it like that at all. They say time is the greatest healer, and there is something in that. There is, right? If only for the failings of our 3D material brains, right? Like, the more time goes by with things, the more our brain kind of pads it a little bit. I think that's probably the way that I want to word it. But I see hope here for you. I see you working around being prone to overthinking, right? And letting each one of those swords hurt you over and over again, right? What it is that this person did. And it doesn't have to be a Sagittarius. I mean, this is the Knight of Wands here, and it can just be somebody who lives much more in the moment than you do, as someone who potentially you consider to have been a bit reckless with your feelings, you know. Take it as it resonates to you, right? But there's a learning to live with it here. And rather than these swords being really active and kind of chopping away at you, every time you feel a little bit bad about something, right, just sort of getting one of those swords out that somebody hit you with, you know, and then just sort of stabbing yourself over and over. You've left them in the ground for long enough that they're starting to grow grass, right? So the only time you need to touch these swords in future, moving forwards, is when you're taking them very gently out of the ground and throwing them away, right? Smelt them down and make some sort of fancy, I don't know, a fancy thing out of metal for yourself, right? The ground is actually bleeding down there. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, right? There's wounds there. But wounds heal, and the grass grows and the flowers grow towards the sun, you know? Anyway, the Hermit is the card that came out with the Seven of Swords. And I feel in this respect, the Seven of Swords is talking about taking a risk for you, right? It can sometimes indicate deception and deceit and all that kind of thing, but actually I feel like for you it's talking about taking a bit of a risk. It's like taking a bit of a punt on something new, right? And it's born of this clarity that's coming in, right? This desire to influence the future in some way. And this feels like a bit of a risk, because I'm just going to come out and say, right, that there is comfort in misery. There is something very familiar and enveloping and comfortable about being upset. Like, for a very long time, I felt much more comfortable and normal when I was depressed than when I was happy, because because that was my normal state. Right? Life had shown me that that was the state that I needed to exist in. And it felt like every time I stuck my head above the parapet and went, I'm going to try being happy now, that the universe came along and used my head as a football. Right? And so I would retreat into the familiar and define myself by it, actually, for a very long time. And this is why it feels like a bit of a risk, because you spent so long this year feeling like this, that to endeavour to feel any differently, and I mean really feel it, not just say it, not just say it for the benefit of, you know, people around you who are checking up on you and making sure you're, you know, you're all right and stuff, but actually feeling it can feel quite risky, right? Hugely risky. But there you are, as the last card in the reading. Yeah. Authentic presentation of your energy. And I think the way will be cautious. I don't think that you're about to take any huge, enormous risks. Like I said, these little things that you have done already that don't feel like they are very much, they actually have got you much further along the path than you think that they have, right? So proceed cautiously in the way that you are, and you'll make just the right amount of moves when you need to make them. Right? There's no need to rush this bit at all. Right, I'm going to leave it here, Virgo. I hope that you found something useful here for you. I'm going to go over to Vimeo now and pull some more cards, because that's what I do. So if you're interested in joining me, there's a link in the description box down there, and we'll pull over these cards a little bit more, get into this transformation and a little bit more about what's coming up. If not, if that's not your bag, then that's all fine. I will see you again in about a week. No, about 15 days, something like that. Okay. Know that I love you all very much, and I'm really proud of what you're doing here, Virgo. It's excellent. I'll see you very soon.